We say that the claim that HS2 is too expensive and that it should not be completed is only part of the answer to the question, which is why HS2 was started in the first place. And the fact that both sleazeball Cameron and the criminal George Osborne have staged a return from retirement to support HS2 shows that those two criminals were particularly involved in the criminal project. As our profile, Twitter profile shows, we have been opposing HS2 right from the beginning of the public announcement of the mega millions, billions being paid to the robbers and big business criminal contractors under the pretext of this infrastructure project. This phrase, infrastructure project, is obsolete, and it was never, ever the economic answer for society. Never. James, who is credited for inventing this phrase, infrastructure project, was himself an idiot because he did not address the real economic issues facing society. Now, as the Khudilar campaign was established 20 years ago to stop the Crossrail projects planned whole in the middle of Brick Lane, which we succeeded in achieving as an object, we said in the peak of the 8 years of the campaign, we said evidentially that any money that they were claiming justifiably to spend for big infrastructure projects like Crossrail should have been prioritized for upgrading and making safe the existing London trains network. The London trains networks carry and have carried far more people every day of the week than the Crossrail line would ever do. In any case, Crossrail, which is corruptly called the Elizabeth line by the crook, liar Boris Johnson, only touches parts of London and South London that are already covered, essentially covered by other networks and lines, especially the route that goes to Sheffield from London has services by the Anglian train services. Many trains already cover those routes. So if it is the safety and the reliability of existing needs for travel, railway travel in and around London, that is supposedly being addressed by HS2, then it shouldn't be allowed to be repeated because that is a lie. HS2 will waste £200 billion of the public, while the big business contractor criminals will pocket the money, and it will not produce a new service at all. The crucial thing about the high speed is rejected by the evidence. There is nothing going on either between London and Birmingham or between London, Birmingham, and Manchester that requires by registering a speed that is faster than the existing rail lines. There is nothing going on, and there will be nothing going on in the foreseeable decades. And there is no economic, social, environmental justification for comparing the railway lines and networks in European countries. What is the point of comparing European countries' railway networks with the British railway needs? The needs for traveling are addressed by reliability, safety, security, and, and of course, relevance. What is the proportion of people traveling currently on the current lines that would actually transfer to a high speed version? And what difference will that make in terms of their engagements? The only obvious difference that it will make can be seen as touted for by or touted about by the promoters of HS2, the peddlers, is that there would be a saving, if that is a saving, of about 20 to 30 minutes in traveling times between the main destinations. London to Birmingham and back, or London to Manchester and back. These journeys will take 20 to 30 or even 40 minutes less than are taken by the current lines, railway lines, between those destinations and areas. But what was the urgency to argue for saving time? Saving time to do what? We shall be continuing this commentary on HS2 criminality. And this criminality is a part of the criminality of the judiciary, the criminality of parliament, criminality of members of parliament, the criminality of the conservative crooks and liars that are already connected with big business contractors. There has been no evidence whatsoever. There has been no evidence whatsoever that the ordinary empirical experience of the people, traveling people from among the cities, Manchester, Birmingham, London, Birmingham, Manchester, Leeds, etc. There has been no independent, spontaneous evidence that these locations and these conurbations and these destinations will lose out, will economically perform disastrously in the absence of a high speed factor being imposed on the existing railway system. We'll talk about Pete Doherty and the murder in 2006 in Whitechapel of the 30-year-old Mark Blanco, which has been the subject of the Channel 4 Dispatches program, which broadcast the documentary yesterday, last night, Monday night. So this documentary, of course, has been already discussed in advance. And to me, it's not a subject that is new. I have been following the various mentions in the British media from time to time, not very frequently. The mentions have been infrequent of the unsolved murder of Mark Blanco, and always notice that every reference to his murder has been a result of the campaigning activities by his mother. Now, this particular documentary has been accompanied by his mother, Mark Blanco's mother, Sheila, stressing that the Metropolitan Police didn't do anything. And there was one other speculation yesterday, probably in the Guardian website, that wondered if the London Metropolitan Police were mesmerized by Pete Doherty's profile as a pop quote star. Pete Doherty was in a relationship with Kate Moss. Now, Kate Moss is described in British media, tabloid media, as a supermodel. I have no idea what that is supposed to mean. Is it a test or tested, tried, and proven reference to her intelligence, her brilliance? I have no idea because the supermodel has never been described as to what constitutes someone being called a supermodel. Kate Moss, I would say, on the records, sold her body in return for undisclosed money to a businessman who regularly got photographed being very close physically to Kate Moss, who was never ever described as being the businessman's girlfriend, or vice versa. So the only reason why Kate Moss was in the pictures with that businessman was because the businessman was prepared to spend hundreds of millions of pounds in return for being able to appear in the photographs. Since Pete Doherty has been linked with the murder of Mark Blanco, Kate Moss, as far as I know, has not been on the record anywhere saying anything about the murder. So we have no idea in terms of public and published accessible evidence as to what Kate Moss thinks or has ever thought about the murder of this man, who was very, very closely identified with Pete Doherty on the night of the murder. And as one of the reports, I think in the Daily Mail today, says, yesterday's documentary broadcast by Whitechapel on the Dispatches program has included a clip which shows Pete Doherty leaving the flat and, and crossing the body of the deceased Mark Blanco, as he, Doherty, and the others concerned fled the scene. So this is a issue that the London Metropolitan Police must investigate and must prosecute and must take to the logical conclusion. We shall be watching the follow-ups to this dispatches program. In passing, just a note about the demise of the actor David McCallum. I first watched him in the brainwashing program, propaganda film, Man from Uncle, in the 1960s. The most impressive thing about that was that it was a neatly constructed, technically attractive production, which brings me back to now. And the film that I have been watching in the last few days, dubbed into Hindi, called Raja the Great. It's an Indian film, South Indian film, featuring Rabi Taja and Mehreen Pirzada in the lead roles. Now, Mehreen Pirzada has not always acted well, and her social media profile and her public identification of herself have not been very honest. Why she has been dishonest is not explained, but I assert that her identification as a Sikh is a lie. She is a Muslim. Now, back to this film, the Raja the Great. Her role as Lucky has been perfect, as Ravi Teja's role as the lead investigator, defender, etc. What this particular film brings into the, if you like, frames is the technicality, and that is something very different from 99.9% of the general South Indian films. And I would believe that the performances and the production and the scripts have well contributed to the rapid popularity of this particular movie, which should be, in technical terms, copied by the producers of this film, makers of the film for other films that they can make and will make. I cannot believe that there has ever been a similar production of a movie in Pakistan as it was before 1971, or there has been anything in Bangladesh, in East Pakistan, that can be compared technically. The only, in terms of intensity and the superiority of the story, that I have found was in the early 1960s in a Calcutta production, which is Kolkata, a Bengali film called Ogni Shambhava. Now, Ogni Shambhava is almost out of circulation. And yet I was fascinated by the script and the story. I shall be talking more about Ogni Shambhava in another time. Now, back to today's Fleet Street and the question of the criminals. Sheffield City Council about to declare itself bankrupt. Sheffield City Council has been one of the Labour controlled councils in England that has been actually seized by gangsters, Labour Party career gangsters and criminals, posing as elected councillors, as well as their criminal colluders put in various positions. It is Sheffield City Council that massacres thousands of trees in Sheffield. And the morally bankrupt Labour Party didn't do anything. It's like Croydon criminals who looted more than £1 billion altogether of the public money under various schemes and scams. Those criminals have been allowed away, and while the people of Croydon keep suffering lesser and lesser quality and quantity of service that they deserve and they need and they are owed. The Labour Party is bankrupt morally, politically, democratically. And despite the fact that the political murderer of the Labour Party, Keir Starmer, keeps getting the right wing's approval in terms of the overall prospect of his forming the imminent coming next UK government. He has no intellect, nor has any of his so-called shadow cabinet members. And Rachel Reeves is a criminal, conservative. She is a spy. And Angela Rayner has been exposed as shallow. When she first took over as the Shadow Education Secretary, one of the campaigns I was doing was about the Ian Mikado School, where the racist head teacher has been the subject of many attempts to get rid of her, and where the Labour Party involvement contaminated the atmosphere and made it even worse for the potential students. And I put some of the evidence at the time of the campaigning points to Angela Rayner. And she failed to acknowledge, and she failed to answer. She failed to comment. So, despite the fact that she has been promoted more kind of rapidly than any of the other shadow cabinet members, and her rapid promotion in terms of the image has been connected with her alleged sexual attractiveness. I don't believe that Angela Rayner will deliver really the alternative that the society needs, even if she is given a post by the political murderer of the Labour Party. Because she has come across and she has been depicted as being a Blairite. If she weren't a Blairite, she would have already registered an objection against that kind of depiction. But she hasn't done that. And on the general question of the fighting racism and fighting the criminality personified by Suela Ibila Cruella Fernandez in terms of migration, asylum, etc. The Labour Party remains as bad now as it was when Jeremy Corbyn allegedly was in the front position, including the fact that Corbyn paid a token visit to the other side of the channel. A French or France based Center for Asylum Seekers. Because Jeremy Corbyn is as racist as Boris Johnson, but Jeremy Corbyn has got devices that include various people of African origin as being among the crew, the Corbyn crew. They are as bankrupt as Corbyn is himself. And the fact that the commentary in the last few days about HS2 has not included anything from any of the Labour Party's so called official spokespeople on transport in Parliament tells the story that the Labour Party doesn't exist. Because it is Tony Blair that nearly dug the hole, Crossrail hole in Brick Lane. If the Khudilar campaign had not been organized by me 20 years ago, and if the campaign wasn't done the way that I did it, then they would have destroyed Brick Lane and they would have destroyed the rest of the community with no opposition from the so called ethnicity linked members. We shall be talking about the Times, which has got an editorial on the HS2, and we shall be talking about the role of the Guardian in promoting the HS2. Suffice to say that in the last 100 years, the infrastructure so called projects have not been really rigorously checked, let alone be kind of implemented. What has happened is that the whole agenda has been driven by big business contractors bent on grabbing hold of hundreds of millions, or in the totality, hundreds of billions of pounds worth of contracts. the needs of the users, the end users of the infrastructure transport projects is always absent from the calculations and the drawings and the analysis. It is quite clear in the abysmal state of the buses, abysmal state of the existing railway lines and carriages and the poor quality. So we shall be talking about all of these and other issues by web upgrade. And we shall be putting together a collective narrative about the baby angel Geronimo and the lessons from the baby angel Geronimo, witnessing of the corrupt behavior of the decision makers in the various organs of the United Kingdom state. This is 36 minutes, just over 36 minutes, and we are bringing this one to an end at 08:25 GMT.